on top. I don't know why, because I installed this in Office, which I had from 2013, but this one apparently is better. So when I install this one, it's got more bells and whistles. So I'm trying to figure out how it works. Okay, let's start with the 12/23, 23rd of December today.
Yeah, I'll eat them. Let's take a shower.
Okay, we have summer wine and the Liangzhou Ci, and we're going to talk a little bit about Alan Turing and the Congress of Vienna. And the conic section is not that important. So these are the things I already sent to you, but what I sent to you is all black. You need to take a notice that I had 3 words highlighted in red. The first one is hyperbole. Hyperbole, last time I spelled it wrong. I spelled the last letter E with a Y, which is wrong. So it should be hyperbole, which means excessively exaggerating. But it's not a bad word. In real life, you don't like people exaggerate too much. But when you're looking at a literary article or a movie or a painting, then we allow the artist to exaggerate. We assume that they have the right to do that. And the second word is mink. I don't know why I spelled it with an X at the end. It should be mink, M-I-N-K. Of course, when you have a plural of it, you would add an S to it. It's minks. And the third word is scapegoat. I wrote it as 2 words, but it is it should be written as 1 word with no space between scape and goat. So let's start. Before we start to do these, I have more correction. I'm sorry I had more correction. Last time when I look at tonight with joy, my own lips meet, I somehow read it wrong. I thought I saw WILL, so I changed the joy to join, JOIN, but I was wrong. It should be tonight with joy, my own lips meet. This is a part of the last line, which is, may those lips that are red and sweet. 我希望这个甜美的这个红又红的这个嘴唇，就是my beloved girl. I wish that those lips tonight with joy. With joy is something you can take out, eliminate that, and still it's a whole sentence. I wish those lips tonight my own lips meet. 今天晚上我自己的 lips 会碰到这位 beautiful girl's lips. And with joy is just something additional to be added on this sentence. Okay. And another one is Roman Empire. I talked about Roman Empire last time, and many times I mentioned that it ended in the year 479. And I stopped to think, and that's wrong. It should be 476. 479 just rolled off my lip, of my tongue, because it was the year that Confucius died. But it's not the same year as 479 AD, because that is BC. So you could say that Roman Empire collapsed 1,000 years after Confucius died. So that's a little difference. It doesn't matter too much, but of course, you cannot just throw in a round number when you talk about things that happen, that actually happened. Okay, it's not a fiction. Roman Empire started in 27 BC when Julius Caesar, declared that he was the dictator. He was the emperor of the empire. Before him, it was a republic. So many idealists would say Julius Caesar is a sinner, the greatest sin in the whole history of mankind, because he snubbed the republic and he assumed himself to be the emperor. Okay, so from 27 BC, you had Julius Caesar, and that empire died in the year 476. And that's actually the year Western Roman Empire died. And Western Roman Empire started in 395 to 476. So it's really less than 100 years. So you would think, oh, how come it's so short? That's because Western Roman Empire started actually in the year 27 BC. So it really lasted about 500 years. That's a pretty decent time span for an empire. And it started in the year 395, because that's the year that Roman Empire split into West and East. And the Eastern Roman Empire started in 395 and ended in 1453, when the Ottoman Turkish Empire conquered Istanbul. How do you call it? Istanbul. Yeah. Well, at that time they conquered Constantinople. Yeah, Constantinople. Yes, and the Constantine the Great was actually the person who split the Western, who moved the capital from Rome to Constantinople. Of course, at that time it was not called Constantinople. Later, when the Ottoman came to Constantinople, they changed the name to Istanbul. Okay, all these are the corrections for last time. And then we talk about 偏见, which is a bias. We all know that there was a novel by Jane Austen called Pride and Prejudice. That was probably one of the most famous novels in the world, maybe one of a dozen best in the world. So we, as an English not speaker, but as a second language, we prematurely learned the word pride and prejudice. Pride is a very common word, but prejudice is not. So we, at an early stage, we came into contact with the word prejudice. But prejudice, when compared with bias, is mild. You can have all kinds of prejudice. For example, Darcy appears. Darcy is the young man in Pride and Prejudice, and Elizabeth looked at him and thought, "Ooh, this is a very arrogant young man, and I didn't like him." But she did not dislike him so much that she did not fall in love with him, because that prejudice was a very mild thing. But if she had a bias against this young man, then probably she would not fall in love with this young man if she is biased, if she is truly biased. So bias and the prejudice are two very similar words, but bias is much worse than prejudice. It is usually you have this wrong idea because you are close-minded, you are prejudicial, or you are unfair. You can see that the word prejudicial, it comes from judiciary. We talked about judiciary many times. We have the Jeffersonian kind of a democracy idea that a government should have three branches. There's executive branch, there's a judiciary branch, and there's the parliament, the legislative branch. That's called the 三权分立. So judiciary is a kind of judgment. It's a good word. Judiciary 是法律上的或者是司法的事情哈。While you add a pre in front of it, that means you have a preconception. You have an idea that made you not to make the proper judgment. So it's called the prejudicial. And close-minded or unfair. So these are what caused a person to be biased. And the word bias can be a noun or a verb. That's where I wrote an N or a V. And the biases can be innate or learned. You can be born with a bias, or you can learn to be biased. For example, you may have a racial prejudice. You look down other people of different race in a different way, or not a very fair way. But that you could be born that way, or you could learn it that way. For example, your parents could teach you to do that, but still some people think you are born with that kind of idea. People do think that being a racist is somewhat nature instead of nurture. These two words, you can also say nature versus nurture 就是先天还是后天这个 innate and learned is like nature or nurture， 一个是先天的，一个是后天Okay, let's go on to the next one, which is longitude and latitude. I have a globe, a picture of the Earth on the right-hand side of the slide. And you see all these lines that are like arcs around from the North Pole to the South Pole. All these lines are called longitude. Yeah, longitude. So they are the big circle from top to bottom. And everything on this line is a certain distance away from other things. So if you are on this line, you are not on any other line. These lines are called longitude or meridian. 我们中国人 would call that 经度，或者我们说这个线是中轴线For example, if you go to say Shaolin Si, or you go in the first, there's the 四大天王, and then you go to the, I don't know, the temple, the main temple, and then there's another, and so on. So all these 4 or 5 different buildings, they're on one line, and they would tell you that they are on one 中轴线. However, if you go to another place, they may not think this way. This is a north-south way. When you go to most buildings, notable buildings in China, they are usually facing the south, and you would go in and in and in. So this is on a meridian. This is the longitude. On the other hand, on this circle, on this globe, you have parallel circles, one, all the way to the top, and from the equator all the way to the bottom. At the equator, that parallel or latitude is the longest, and the sun favors that line all year round. The sun was shining either straightly on it or not far from it. So if you give the latitude of a place, you can easily tell how hot it is. The farther away, the bigger the number, the farther away it is from the equator. So these words are very important words to learn: the longitude and latitude, and meridian, and the parallels. Parallels 是平行的意思 because all these latitude lines, they are parallel to each other. The next one is trunk, and we're talking about the trunk of an elephant, 所以是它的鼻子. the trunk of an elephant. And we also have a trunk, which is the picture on the right. It is the old-fashioned wooden or leather suitcases that you store things or you carry things when you travel. That's called a trunk. Another way about trunk is the body. A human body or most animals' body, they have a main torso. Torso 就是躯体哈 torso or trunk, and you have the appendages, which include the head, the two arms, and the two legs. These are the appendage. 就是说它们是附件，而不是主要的哈。So the trunk itself is the core. Appendage appendages 就是附加上面的零件哈。So you have the neck and the four limbs, and the neck and the head, of course. So you have 5 things attached to the trunk, and the word is trunk, just like this elephant or this big suitcase. The same word is trunk. And now come to our first story, which is Alan Turing. Alan Turing, 1912 to 1954, age 41 when he died, only a few days before he turned 42. He was an English mathematician, computer scientist, logician, which means he's a person good at logics, and a cryptanalyst. Crypt is 密码哈 analyst 是一个分析师哈 the person who analyzes and try to decode some cryptic system and he's a philosopher and a theoretical biologist. So you can see that he's a very, very intelligent person, very smart. And Turing is widely considered to be the father of theoretical computer science and artificial intelligence. So we should thank him for a lot of things that we have right now, such as internet or a smartphone or things like that. Yeah, he, of course, that's like 70 or 80 years ago. So you think that he would be very important, and we would treasure him so much for his talent and hard work. During the Second World War, Turing worked for the government code and decipher school at Bletchley Park. It is like our CIA in Langley. Britain's code-breaking center that produced ultra intelligence. So he's very important, and he worked at the British CIA to break the codes. Turing played a crucial role in cracking intercepted coding messages. Okay, and so he enabled the Allies to defeat the Nazis in crucial engagement. So he was very monumentally important in the Allies defeating the Nazis. Allies, 就是 during the Second World War, the Allies are the United States, British, France, and several others, including China. 我们叫做协约国吧，轴心国跟协约国哈。那轴心国呢就是 Axis 哈 ，Axis 现在我们说 Axis of evil 哈 ，Axis would have a capital A 哈，这叫做轴心国 ，and those countries would be Germany, Italy, Japan, and notably Russia is also in the Allied camp. It's been estimated, and this is very interesting, it has been estimated that this work that Alan Turing did shortened the war in Europe by more than 2 years and saved over 14 million lives, because he broke the German code. So the Allies won several crucial engagements that shortened the World War II by 2 years in Europe, of course. We're not talking about the Pacific side. And he saved 14 million lives. Wow, this kind of achievement is not easy. You don't come by such wonderful people every day. After the war, he also did all these things which I could not begin to apprehend, so I'm not going to talk about it. So he really was one of the very important people who make computer possible in the world. However, how was he treated by the British government? He was prosecuted in 1952 for homosexual act. Oh, okay, I really can't see that word, acts, okay. He was prosecuted because he was a homosexual and he was having relationships with men. And many people just could not get over it. They had to prosecute him. He accepted chemical castration treatment as an alternative to prison. So he was tried and convicted and given two choices. He could either go to prison and stay there, or he could choose chemical castration. So what would you do? So he chose chemical castration. And in 2 years, he died of cyanide poisoning, which is 砒霜, 是一种毒药. It was 16 days before his 42nd birthday. So we could say that he probably thought life was not tolerable and killed himself, or he by accident killed himself, or somebody killed him. Okay, so people, the law says that he committed suicide, but it's not really conclusive. A little earlier than him, there was Oscar Wilde, 我们叫做王尔德, he was another brilliant person, but in this case, he was Irish instead of English. However, he was so smart and brilliant, and he wrote so many wonderful plays and stories, and he was just very popular. He went about visiting the United States and doing all kinds of things, and every time he had a performance, cracking jokes and telling about life stories, he had a sold out audience, and he was on top of the world until he was also prosecuted for homosexual acts. In his case, it was because he had a relationship with a young man who you could say was a student, and that young man's father sue him in court for such action. And his life also crashed just like this. And no one would even talk to him. And he moved, Oscar Wilde, he went to Paris and died penniless on the street. This is how intolerance can do in a society that prosecutes the best and the brightest of their people. And we could say that people are biased. Yeah, you can say that. There are a lot of people who are biased, and they think people who are homosexual are evil, and the society must get rid of them by castration or chemical castration or whatever. But after many, many years, more research was done, and they found that being homosexual is not a deviance. It's not because they're evil or whatever, and they were born that way. So people nowadays have a different view of things like this. And we still think that many people they are biased against the homosexual because they were, I mean, the people who are biased because they were born that way. I mean, they themselves are biased. They were born with that bias within them. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. Okay. Now, in 2009, British Prime Minister Gordon Brown made an official apology on behalf of the British government for the appalling way Alan Turing was treated. The government apologized to him. And a few years later, 4 years later, Queen Elizabeth II granted him a pardon because he was convicted and died, of course, which the entire country thought that was the wrong thing to do. So Queen Elizabeth granted him a posthumous pardon. That is a pardon after he was dead. Posted just after, posthumous just after death. We know that Donald Trump is unhappy that he's leaving this high position. He's very reluctant to do that. And one thing there was only one thing left for him to do that he's happy to do. That is to pardon all the criminals that he thought was wrong to convict. And he having all these biases, having all these different ideas than most of us have, he is pardoning all kinds of people that we don't think he should pardon. Like today, he pardoned a group of people who murdered during the Afghanistan war or Iraqi war. Anyway, it was 10 years ago. Anyway, they were just some of the people that he was going to pardon. He's also pardoning, who's that person who was he admitted that he lied to FBI twice and was convicted, and Donald Trump pardoned him. I was going to say John Kelly, but it's not Kelly, isn't he? Anyway, the Alan Turing law is now an informal term for a new law that retroactively pardoned all the people who were convicted for homosexual acts when that law was in place. And that law is no longer in place. And there's a new law that pardoned all the people under that homosexual law. So I forever remember my 6th grade teacher who told us that what is morality? It is something that is the standard regardless of time and place. Wherever you go, what time you are, the morality would be the same standard, but he was wrong, okay? He was wrong. The next word is sabotage. You would pronounce it as sabotage because it's a French word. It means that you may be waging a war against another country or another people or group or whatever. You could declare that we're going to have a battle, we're going to blow you up, we're going to do all these things, and we fight in the field or on the street. But on the other hand, we could also secretly, behind everyone's back, went about and destroyed their things or disrupt something. This is called the sabotage. That's not an open warfare, but it's secretly destroying your enemy, such as Russia hacking our government computer system. This kind of things, they are not a declaration of war. So it's not an action that's they do it in the open, but it's a secret thing that would destroy something behind the undercover secretly. Okay, and this person who is assigned by the government or by whoever to do this work of sabotage is a saboteur, T-E-U-R. But if you speak in English, you would say maybe saboteur. Yeah, but it's saboteur. And the similar words would be author. In French, you would say auteur, auteur, okay, not odor, okay, that would be a snacks. And entrepreneur, or an entrepreneur, these are all French words. Why would you call an author an auteur? That's because you think, oh, he's so good and so artistic. We need a special word, not an English word for this person who's an author. So we would call this person auteur. And that T would usually be pronounced as D. And we have besiege, which is a verb, and a siege is a noun. Both means 围城. The siege of Leningrad, 就是 St. Petersburg during the Second World War, was under siege by Nazi Germany for over 900 days. So it was a terrible situation. And the funny thing is Nazi Germany and Russia, Stalin, they had an agreement, a friendship treaty. So that allowed Nazi or Hitler to feel very safe when he launched World War II to attack the Netherlands, Belgium, and France, and on to British, all these countries, Nazi Germany was free to attack because he had a treaty with Russia that they would not invade each other. And as soon as Hitler was safely sitting on top of the entire Western Europe, he broke that treaty and started to invade Russia and put Leningrad, which is now St. Petersburg, under siege for 900 days. Okay, that's the word siege. This we don't have to talk about. It's just lenses like these are convex, while these are concave, just to and out. And these are the words we use when we learn the word engraving and etching. This, for etching, we use acid, which is corrosive. Corrosive 就是会腐蚀的. In order for the metal plate to become concave, so you can print pictures on them. And all these words are what you would learn in chemistry. There's acid and base, 酸跟碱. Acidic and the basic. Alkali is a basic salt, and acidity or alkalinity, these are all about acid and base. Okay, and I also want to show you a picture of the printed circuit board. A circuit board in your computer is usually a green colored board with lots of circuits printed on it by etching it. It is a great invention, very high tech, and that's how you don't have to put thousands of wires in the computer case because all the wiring were done by etching. Isn't that wonderful? So now we talk about the Olympic Games. We had all these events, events 就是里面的一个项目Olympic Games have events. Here's one, shot put. Actually, when we were in high school or middle school, we've learned all these things. We tried a little bit, but we were not terribly good at it. That is called shot put. And this is called the javelin throw. And this is called disc throw, throwing a disc. A disc is a thing that is round and flat. We can also call a frisbee a disc. And this amazingly beautiful sculpture of a human athlete. Well, I heard that during Olympic Games, everybody is naked and there were no women. This sculpture was estimated to be done in 460 to 450 BC. And that was just one fine piece of sculpture. And I saw this, it's a copy. There's no original anymore in the world. All are copies. And I saw this in the Botanical Garden in Copenhagen, the University of Copenhagen on this day. This is called Myron's Discobolus. And Myron is probably the town where this sculpture was first excavated. And this is a beautiful botanical garden with a huge palm house. There are a lot of greenhouses. Some are big, some are small. And the great big ones are always called a palm house because you could plant palm trees in it. And this one is in Copenhagen and free of charge. Make sure that you go there to see this wonderful botanical garden. And let's continue with all these events in the Olympic Games. We have hurdles. These are high hurdles. What I used to do in high school was low hurdles. And here we have pole vault. Pole vault is you take a big pole that is quite flexible and you stick it on the ground and you jump into the sky and you try to vault over this thing, this whatever it is, the line in the sky that you're trying to jump over. We heard that Yang Chuanguang was really tops in the world doing this one. The word vault is any arched ceiling or roof. So if you go to the big church with the Gothic ceiling, you could say it has a vaulted ceiling. Or if you go to its basement, which is usually called a crypt, and you go there, and the ceiling would also be somewhat arched, and you could see big coffins or sarcophagus belonging to kings, queens, and so on and so forth. So that in the big cathedral, that's where you can see vaulted ceilings and the vaulted ceiling in the basement as well. And a place in the bank could have a vault that they store all your treasures, all their money, and all your safe deposit boxes. That's the vault. The vault of a bank is like that. And there is one event in the Olympic Games. It's called vault. This piece of furniture is called a vault. And this person is doing something that is called vault. What he does is he came from here and he raced and became faster and faster. And he jumped on with his two hands on this vault and he flips himself, I guess, 360 degrees. And then he tried to land on his feet. This is event is called a vote. Unlike this one, which is called a poll vote, that is to vote with a poll. Okay. My next story is about French Revolution, Napoleon, and the Congress of Vienna. The French Revolution technically is 1789 to 1799, 11 years. It started with the siege of Bastille, that is the prison, the big prison in Paris is called Bastille, 巴士底监狱. A group of protesters went and besieged Bastille prison that on July 14th. That's the day of French Independence Day. So that, generally speaking, is the beginning of French Revolution. And it just went on and on and on, at least for 11 years. They passed a constitutional monarchy. That's before the king and queen were not dead yet. They passed the constitution so that the king would obey the people's wish. And this period lasted for about 3 years. And the king and the queen were both not king. Was that a king? I would assume they were emperor and empress, but we say they're king and queen. We're sure Louis XIV was called him an emperor, but Louis XVI maybe not. Who knows? Well, some people certainly know. Then after 1792, there's First Republic. So they got rid of the monarchy and they became a republic. So they were ruled by people. And from 95 to 99, there's the directory is in charge of the government. So most people would say that's the end of French Revolution, but that doesn't mean that it ended, because it went on and on. It's just that the person came along, Napoleon, who changed everything. Because once Napoleon became the dictator, first he was the consulate, first consul in 1799 to 1804. Napoleon was the first consul. So you can no longer call that French Revolution, because he became the dictator, and then he was crowned the emperor. He was emperor of France on May 18, 1804. So you cannot say that's part of French Revolution anymore, but it's still quite unstable until he was chased away. He, let me see, 1821. He died in 1821, and he was exiled to Elba in 1814. 10 or 11 years. No, 10 years. Okay. So the whole thing is from 1789 all the way till he died, or he was in exile. That's a long time. But so when you say French Revolution, maybe you're not counting it all the way through. However, I'm sure you all have this idea about Victor Hugo. Victor Hugo, he wrote Les Miserables. That is called 悲惨世界, and that was in 1862 when he wrote it. And the story was entirely from 1815 to 1832. So was that story within the so-called French Revolution time? No, it was not. We just said that French Revolution was from 1789. It's easy to remember, 1789. 789 to 1799. So this story about Les Miserables was entirely after the so-called French Revolution, which we thought was this date. But everybody knows the story was about French Revolution, but it was after that. So the French Revolution did not stop in the year 1799. It went on and on and on, at least in 1850. It's still a story about the French Revolution, even at that time. Napoleon is gone. And 1832, Napoleon was long gone. He's dead for many years, but that's how it was. We always thought it was the French Revolution story. Here's Napoleon Bonaparte. He was born in 1769 and he died in 1821. And I would say he died pretty young, but he had a very illustrious life, and few of us, nobody that I know could compare with Napoleon as far as what he achieved. And here I have a chart. We don't have to go through it. And he was a very busy person. In the beginning, he became the first consul. This is the year he became French consulate. That's when the revolution ended, because it became an empire. You cannot say the revolution is still going on. And then he went to fight and conquer half of the world. Yeah, he conquered Belgium and the Netherlands and Spain and Germany. And he went to Russia and so on and so forth. Here's 1812. That's the year he went to Russia. So he fought the coalition. A coalition is like the word allies. Same word. Coalition is an association of several parties, like countries, like in this case, we have all these people, the whole Western Europe against France. So they are the British and Spanish and Germany and all these countries. They had a third coalition and a fourth coalition and the fifth coalition. They all lost until the sixth, in which they won. So Napoleon was defeated in the War of the Sixth Coalition, and he was exiled to Elba. But he came back for 111 days. That's called a 100-day whatever. And he then was defeated by Duke of Wellington and exiled on St. Helena and died in 1821. He was very much alone on a deserted island for many years. Then I have this quick map to show you that the Louisiana Purchase was something done between United States, between Thomas Jefferson and Napoleon. And Napoleon sold all this huge land to Thomas Jefferson because he needed money and he didn't want to be involved in America, the continents, North and South continent. So he sold it so that he could concentrate his effort. Remember 1803, and he was really busy from 1803 on. So he really did not have time to take care of this huge piece of land, which America got for cheap. Okay. So after 1814, which is when Napoleon lost to the Sixth Coalition, he was exiled, and quickly there was a Congress of Vienna convening in Vienna, of course, but it's not really a Congress. A Congress would have all kinds of representatives getting together to talk, but this Congress of Vienna didn't have all those second-rated countries and representatives. It's just a handful of important people. They were secretly meeting there and to talk about things and to divide up the land left by Napoleon, because the year before, all these land belonged to Napoleon or belonged to France. And now that Napoleon is gone, they quickly had this meeting in order to divide it. It is not to restore everything to what it used to be, because things were wiped out by Napoleon. And all these big heads want things to be done the way they prefer. So all these big heads, they discussed secretly and divided the countries, draw lines, draw the borders, and so on and so forth, so that their country could have more advantage over others. Now, this is how they divided. And of course, their main goal is to preserve all the monarchies in Western Europe. They are not going to let all these wild, ordinary citizens go on the street and trying to kill their kings. That's not the way to do. So the Congress of Vienna is to divide the land and to prop up the government, the royalties in all these countries that Napoleon used to conquer. So this is a meeting. From the dates, you know that as soon as these European countries got rid of Napoleon, they quickly gathered to have a meeting. And halfway into the meeting, Napoleon came back to be an emperor again for 111 days. But they were not deterred. They still want to finish their conference or congress. And they just made those decisions while Wellington defeated Napoleon and exiled him forever. That's the time frame. If you think about it, it was right after they put Napoleon on Elba, the island of Elba. And then again, Napoleon came back and was again exiled to St. Helena. And this is all the work of Metternich and several other people. Metternich is an Austrian statesman. At that time, it was Austro-Hungarian Empire, 就是奥匈帝国, and Metternich was the prime minister. All these leaders, they don't want Republican. They don't want their country to become a 共和国. A republic is a country ruled by people instead of by the king or queen or emperors. This is called the republic. And historians always had very low marks for this Congress of Vienna because these people are not forward-minded. They were very conservative. They just want to keep the status quo. They want people who used to be in power to again be in power forever. That's their goal. And the world is changing very fast. So no matter how they did that, it's not going to work. And that's why, as I mentioned last time, in 1848, protest and revolution broke out all over in Europe. And many of them succeeded, like in Germany and Italy. Last time we were talking about Italy, how King Emmanuel II, with the help of Mazzini and Cavour and Garibaldi, the three very capable heroes who made it possible for Italy to become not a republic, but an independent and united country with a king on the throne. So it's not really a republic, but it is a parliamentary monarchy, 所以是君主立宪. And in Germany, it's similar. You must remember that both Italy and Germany were a big plate of many, many states, hundreds of small states before 1970. And then they united, each country united to become a big country that we know of. Sometimes we go to school and we learn everything in history, and we thought, okay, that's how things were, but that's not how things are going to be in the future. Or actually in the past, when we learn, oh, there's Germany, there's Italy, but before that, only 100 years before that, there was no Germany and no Italy. That's a very interesting thing. And here's probably an etched plate of Congress of Vienna. And the Congress was actually a few very important people meeting in a small room instead of having a huge convention. This thing is monumental in that nothing like this has ever happened before. This is the first time that many nations came together to formulate a treaty instead of doing it by messengers between the two countries or the meeting of two people. This is a really, even though we say not too many countries participated, it was still the first ever in this world. Of course, later we had the First World War and the Second World War, and we have places like United Nations where hundreds and hundreds of people from all over the world came together. But in the past, such thing has never happened before. And whatever borderline they drew at that time, it lasted more or less until the First World War broke out. That was in 1914. This word is unification, and the similar words, related words, are union and unify. And here I'm going to digress and talk about Giuseppe Verdi. He was a composer. He mainly composed operas. He was brilliant, and he wrote so many great operas. And he lived pretty long, and that's a very dignified picture, a portrait of him. And what happened to him? Why would I talk about him? He was sympathetic with the reunification of Italy. When he was there, he mainly was active in Venice and Milan and maybe Rome. At that time, Italy was broken up into many states, of course. And he was thinking about unifying all these states. And he was living in, as I mentioned, in Venice and Milan. At that time, it was under occupation by Austro-Hungarian Empire. So Austria is their lord. And when your country is occupied by another country, there are many things you cannot do or say, and then make you very unhappy. And Verdi, we could agree that he wanted more freedom and self-government. So one year, when he was 20 years old, in 1841, he started to write this opera. It was probably his third opera. He was very young, actually. However, his wife and the two sons died the previous year. I think his father also died. So he was really, really unhappy. And then he came across this opera script, and he was attracted to this story of Israeli people being conquered by Nabucco. Nabucco is the king or emperor of Babylon， 就是巴比伦的国王哈，他的名字叫做 Nebuchadnezzar. However, Italians usually call it Nabucco. So it's much easier to remember. And Verdi felt very much sympathy with these Israeli people who was under Nabucco's reign. And he wrote this wonderful, wonderful song. I wish you would go after the class to go to YouTube to look for this song, which is called Va Pensiero, or you can just pick Nabucco or Verdi, and you can easily find this song. It's really, really moving chorus of all these people under the control of another nation. So Verdi, starting with this Va Pensiero, he wrote many similar operas that would encourage people to rise up, to protest, to try to become independent. He was one of the great influence over Italian unification. So he is a philosopher, but expressed in the form of music or opera. Now this is called the Chorus of the Hebrew Slaves, Va Pensiero. Va Pensiero means go thought on wings of gold. 这个 pensiero 就是 thought on wings of gold. Okay, actually this libretto, that's the lyrics of this song, is inspired by Psalm 137. That is 圣经里面的 Psalm， 就是旧约里面的诗歌哈。Okay, there goes one story. Nuance is a very good word, and most people don't quite know it yet. So it's a good thing that if you don't, you can learn this, because it shows you have a sophistication. That's another word you can learn if you don't already, because they are very common words. Sophistication. Sometimes you look at things as black and white, but if you're smarter, you know there are certainly other shades of green in between black and white. The more thoughts you give to it, the more sophistication you have, and the more you can see the nuance of the differences between things. That's why some people are stupid and they think, oh, okay, this is good. Oh, we are all for it. But everything is more complicated than you think. So if you're simple-minded, you probably could not tell the differences, and your mind is less sophisticated, and you could not tell the nuances. Okay. Here we have the word salute that probably everyone knows. Salute is to pay respect, usually with a gesture like this. In the army, you would have a 3-finger salute or 2-finger salute or something. So that's called a salute. However, in Italy, this word could also mean health, to your health, or you wish people health, or you wish safety or well-being, or that you wish things to be harmonious. So when you drink, you would raise your cup and toast, make a toast, T-O-S-T, T-O-A-S-T, okay. So when you make a toast, you are wishing somebody. You could say cheers or salute or bottoms up. Bottoms up is like 干杯 in Chinese. When we drink till you see the bottom is dry. That's called the bottom up. So these are the words that you say. And if you are Italian, you would probably say salute, which is okay when we say in English that is a salute, but it's also, and it also has many other meanings, such as good to your health and so on. And sometimes when you see somebody sneezes, you would say salute, or you say bless you, or you would say Gesundheit. These are the words you can say when you see somebody sneezes. That's because in Western Europe, there was more than once the plague running amok, like our pandemic. It's called a plague, 就是一个黑死病哈。黑死病 is not necessarily, I mean, plague does not necessarily mean 黑死病哈。黑死病 would be a bucolic, what's the word? Plague, huh? Bucolic, not bucolic, bubonic, I'm sorry, bubonic. And there are many kinds of plagues. So maybe when Romeo was around, people were getting bubonic plagues, but there are other times, like in 1918, we had a flu, which is very, very deadly, 10 times more deadly than our COVID-19. These are all called the plague, which is a pandemic if it goes beyond one country. So when somebody gets this plague, the first thing would be to sneeze. So people were scared or very cautious when they saw somebody sneeze. So they would quickly say salute or bless you or Gesundheit. Here we have Gesundheit. If you're German, you would say Gesundheit when you see somebody sneezing. However, plague did not become very prevailing in Asia. So we did not have this kind of habit. So when you were in Taiwan or China, you probably have never heard people saying something when somebody sneezes. And you go to America and everybody is saying, bless you, or Gesundheit. And you wonder what was happening. That was because they had this tradition of a plague running around, killing everybody, and their first symptom was to sneeze. That's why people were very sensitive when they saw some people sneezes, and it became a habit. Some people don't even know why they say that, but it's just what other people are doing. This is called the salute or bless you or Gesundheit. Here we have a word called beguile, and you can say beguiled. That means an adjective that a person was beguiled by another. But this is not just falling in love or attracted to somebody. This is something more magical or wicked, or in a deceptive way. Somebody beguiled us seem to mean that he has some kind of charm, or a magician-like wits that would cause people to like him so much. So this word has that meaning, connotation in it, beguile. And I mentioned the two movies last time, and I could not come up with the name of the actor, which I actually came up with, but I thought I was wrong. This one was Clint Eastwood in the movie called The Beguiled, and the same movie was remade in 2017. This one was 1971, and this movie, the leading actor was Colin Farrell. Last time I came with the name Colin Farrell, but I thought he's not Colin Firth. It's a little confusing, but this young man is Colin Farrell, and there are three attractive women in this picture. You can see there's a Nicole Kidman standing closer to the man, and the one sitting in the front, that's supposedly his love interest, Kirsten Dunst. It's because this whole school is a girls' school, and suddenly a soldier, injured soldier, came around and it had to be attended to. All the girls went crazy, including the mistress, who is played by Nicole Kidman. I'm not particularly fond of these movies, but this is how you can learn a new word, beguiled. And then there are two words which essentially mean the same thing, pious and devout. But devout is a devout, say, Christian or a Buddhist or whoever. It's just purely a person who is really dedicated and a great believer of this philosophy or this religion. That's what devout means. But pious is a little bit different in that it can mean exactly the same thing, but sometimes it would have a slightly pejorative tone here, huh? 就是说, when you use this word to describe a devout person, you are hinting that this person thought he or she is above us. He or she, usually it's a she, huh? She is so devout that she thought she was above everyone else because she thought you were not as devout as she is. That's what pious sometimes means, but not all the time. And this is all because of what they say was the alcoholic prohibition was caused by women's suffragette, because all of a sudden the people having voting right doubled because all the women were allowed to vote, and immediately they thought drinking alcohol is not a pious thing to do. If you believe in God, you should not be drinking. So they passed a law that banned drinking or buying or making or selling alcoholic drinks. That's how prohibition came about. And the word bootleg or rum running, running 就是走私的意思，rum 当然是一种酒rum running. So this is two words with the same first letter. So this is a kind of rhyming instead of rhyming with the same kind of ending rum running is called the bootleg, 就是运私酒或者卖私酒、做私酒等等it's illegal business of transporting and the trading of alcoholic beverages. And later on, we use the word bootleg for audio, video, CD or DVD recording. You sell things that were illegally copied. So you use the word bootleg because it's against the law to copy the copyrighted thing. And moonshine is illicitly, this is another word, it's similar to the word illegal, illicitly made and or distributed alcoholic drinks. So moonshine 就是酿私酒 In the West, mainly we were talking about United States. During the prohibition, people are not supposed to brew any alcoholic beverages. So that is illegal. But compared to us in Taiwan, it was or it is illegal for people, regular people, to make alcoholic drinks at home, not because of prohibition, but because of the monopoly. Here we have monopoly. Monopoly, I guess it's spelled this way. A monopoly is that the government has assigned a certain right to only one agency. For example, 烟酒公卖局, only this agency can make or sell alcoholic drinks. So any ordinary citizen who does the similar thing would be against the law. Here we have two words that I just mentioned. There's illegal and there's illicit. And they both came from the word without IL in the front. So something is illegal. When it's not legal, we put an IL in front of it. And something is licit, and we put an IL in front. It becomes illicit. However, the word illicit is much more commonly seen than the other without IL. So these two are both illegal, but they have a little bit difference. I think probably illegal means according to the law, and the illicit is probably a more common or generalized word. For example, you can have an illicit affair. That's not really wrong, not really illegal to have an affair with a married woman or whatever, but it is an illicit thing that you would hide from others. Okay. Bathtub gin means you make illegal rum at home. You do not necessarily do it in your bathtub, but saying it was done in a bathtub just means that you're not really a professional. You do it in a very sloppy way. The quality control is not so good, huh? We use the word amateur. Here's another word that's French with EUR as a person behind something. Amateur is not professional, 就是业余的. Or since we're talking about drinking, we have the word goblet, which is just like this a fancy wine vessel, 一个喝酒的杯子，可是很 fancy 的. It usually has a stem, 下面有一个a stem which you can hold on to. This kind of wine cup is called a stemware. And the goblet means it's much larger than a champagne glass. So it's a big wine glass, and it's often used in ceremony or religious purposes. Another way to say it would be grail. Holy Grail is one particular goblet that Jesus used during his Last Supper. And people all over the Christian world would try to locate this Holy Grail. So if it's some high and hard to achieve goal, we call that a Holy Grail, because everyone wants to get hold of it, and it's so very hard. There are a lot of movies about the Holy Grail, especially the stories about King Arthur, where only the purest of the pure knights could go and find the Holy Grail. Here, I'm going to just go over this very quickly. It's about Faroe Islands, because it was listed in last week's list as one of the very first, only after Canada's PEI, Prince Edward Islands, as a second country to have prohibition. You probably have never heard of Faroe Island. It was, or still is, part of Denmark, and it is a group of 17 inhabited, but many more uninhabited, 就是没有住人的很多的小岛. This is called the Faroe Islands, and here is Denmark, and that's Iceland, and that's Scotland. So you can see how It is in the middle of nowhere. Here you have Denmark, and this Scotland and Norway, and this is Faroe Island. For a time, it was a part of a Viking country. Then it became a Christianized. Yeah, they became Christians, and for a time Irish monks were there, and for a time it was part of Scotland, and then for most of the part, Faroe Island belonged to a country that is a combination of Norway and Denmark until the two countries split up. So it followed Denmark until now. So it's part of Denmark even now. It wanted independence, and it got its independence in many ways. I mean, autonomy, huh? When we say autonomy, 就是有自主，可是还是没有 total independence. That's what we mean by this. And then we have the word license. We all know that we have driver's license, but 007 James Bond, he has a license to kill. 就是说 he is allowed to kill anyone without first getting a permission from, say, the government. And it's legal for him to that. He will not be convicted of this crime because he has a license to kill, which is, of course, not something we have. But there are many people who have artistic license or poetic license or dramatic license or creative license. Because someone is an artist, we allow this someone to have a license to not follow the rules or not to always be factual. They could deviate from the facts, and we still say it's okay. Now, there are many movies, when it's out, of course, people would make notes that this is incorrect, and so on and so forth. But we give the creator an artistic license so that they could do things that are not fact-based, and not factual, or not really up to scrutiny. That's called an artistic license or poetic license. Okay, so we let them to exaggerate things, which we usually consider not a good thing to do. And when they do it, we don't say that this artist exaggerate things. We say it's a hyperbole. 就是说他的这个夸大是很有艺术性的。Okay, hyperbole is the word we use to express exaggeration. However, we allow things to happen if it's considered a hyperbole. 这个所谓 rhetorical 就是修辞学的上人，你让他用 hyperbole to write a speech which may not be very truthful. And this word hype is from the word hyperbole. It's just a shortened version of it. And here we have some example of Li Bai's hyperbole. 朝如青丝暮成雪, or 白发三千丈, 离愁似个长. This is when Li Bai says something which is totally out of the blue that we know it's not true, but we let him say it because it's so beautiful, okay? And what is a hyperbola? It is a section, we call that the hyperbola, That's where this word hyperbole came from. It means overthrown or excessive. It's just exaggerate, So when you have a 双曲线, it goes like that. And it's like the Li Bai, when he wrote 白发三千丈, we use that hyperbole which is a word from hyperbola. What is a hyperbola? It's a pair of curves that happen when you cut two conic cones. Here we have a conic cones. Well, actually, it's right here in this picture. Two conic cones 就是圆锥体哈。圆锥体 is a cone that's circular at the base. So you have a circle and you have a cone. So this is a conic cone. 圆锥, okay. So you have two conic cones on top of each other, pointed together, and then you use a plane to cut through it, and you got two hyperbole. A pair of hyperbola. Okay, but if you cut differently, like this, you cut the cone slat like this, not two cones, just one, then you get an ellipse, which is 椭圆. And if you cut it another way, which is like this one is called a parabola, you see? So when you have a cone, you cut it with a plane, 就是一个平面, It could be a circle when you really put it level, or when you do it slightly in a slant way, that is an ellipse. And if you cut it through once, not the other side, just one side, you got a parabola. And if you could cut two cones at the same time, you got hyperbola. These are the words we learned in high school. These are some of the pictures. When we say toast, we mean that we hold a glass of wine and we wish something. And the word roast is different. It is to poke fun at somebody for comedic result. So at an event where you gathered many of his friends together and each one say a joke about him, that is called a roast of this person. In the old days on TV, we have lots of such programs. That's called the celebrity roast. Then we come to minks. That's close to the end of the list. Mink is and sable. There are two kinds of 雕哈。这个的 sable is called the 紫雕、黑雕、鳞雕, and we are more familiar with the word mink. Mink is a 水釉 or 雕. Okay, so you can see they're different. Okay, they have a different Latin names and so on and so forth, but they are really the best kind of animal for real fur with hairs. You have animal skin with the hair on it. That's called fur. 就是皮 if you have an animal skin and you shave or take off all the hair and use only the skin, that is called the leather, 就是皮革类. However, if you leave the fur on, that is the fur, because not all the animals have good furs that you want to keep. And mink and sable are the best kind of all the animals in the world. They are probably the two best animal to harvest the fur for your garment. Okay. And then I talked about the word shed. Shed means when you have a rabbit fur and you bought a jacket or something with rabbit hair on it, and you would soon realize it sheds. When I say it sheds, means it's let go of the hair all the time. You just put your hand over it and you can see a lot of hair on your hand. That's called the shed. And the shed is also a thing like this. This is my own masterpiece. I just painted this shed a week ago. I thought I could do it in 2 days, but it took me 10 days or more. And in the beginning, I painted gray and then I painted white. And of course, some of the white went overboard and I had to use a gray to fix it. And after I fixed all the things, and I found some of the gray went to the white area. So I had to use a white paint brush and do this. I did back and forth many times. That's only because I was too lazy to put on the masking tape. You know what masking tape is? You would put on the masking tape on the border so when you brush, it would not go over the line. But I was too lazy, and I don't trust my masking taping because you really have to tape it well. If you just put it on, but not pressing it all the way down carefully, it's not going to work, okay? So this is an amateur work. I am not a professional. After I did this, I am so, I have so much respect for people who could do it. It is really, really hard, but of course, I've never done this before. Okay, and roll off your tongue means 出口成章, but it's a little different. It has a meaning that, oh, it just roll off your tongue. But 出口成章 seems to say that the person who did this is very good at using words. Okay, it has a higher level of respect. And the last word is scapegoat, which is from the Bible. In Leviticus, I don't know how you translate Leviticus, that was in the Old Testament. There was two baby goat. There were two baby goat, a pair of goats. Then one is let free while the other was sacrificed. And this one who was sacrificed, not because this goat did anything wrong more than the other one, but he became the scapegoat. All the sins in the world was put on this scapegoat so that we kill this goat and we are relieved of all our sins or impurity. So it's a kind of atonement to have a scapegoat. However, nowadays we use this word in a different meaning. We say that a person who did nothing wrong, but we want to blame him for this thing so that we could blame somebody. So we're doing something wrong to this person and he is a scapegoat. Okay, now we're going to sing this song, which is, let me see how I can stop share. Stop share. We have to do this and probably this.
Strawberries, cherries, and an angel's kiss in spring. My summer wine is really made from all these things.
I walked in town on silver spurs that jingle too, a song that I had only sang to just a few. She saw my silver spurs and said, let's pass some time, and I will give to you summer wine. Oh, summer wine.
Strawberries, cherries, and an angel's kiss in spring. My summer wine is really made from all these things. Take off your silver spurs and help me pass the time, and I will give to you summer wine. Oh, summer wine.
My eyes grew heavy and my lips, they could not speak. tried to get up, but I couldn't find my feet. She reassured me with an unfamiliar line, and then she gave to me more summer wine. Oh, summer wine.
Strawberries, cherries, and an angel's kiss in spring. My summer wine is really made from all these things. Take off your silver spurs and help me pass the time, and I will give to you summer wine. Summer wine.
When I woke up, the sun was shining in my eyes. My silver spurs were gone, my head fell twice its size. She took my silver spurs, $1 and a dime, and left me craving for more summer wine. Oh, summer wine.
Okay. New share. So where is mine? I would take that out. Okay. And as you can see, there are names underneath this link, which is Nancy Sinatra and Lee Hazelwood. It's like telling a story. The story just develops as they sing along. Strawberry cherries and an angel's kiss in spring. My summer wine is really made from all these things. This is the beginning. It tells you what my summer wine is made of. Then the story started with a man walking into town with silver spurs. Spur is a sharp wheel at the back of your boots. When you ride on a horse, you would use a spur to push on the belly of the horse to make it run faster or to listen to you. So in Chinese, we would call that ma ci. And this fancy guy is having spurs made of silver or plated with silver. 就是说它是银子做的或者是镀银的哈。It jingles to a song. So this spur with the jingles make a sound of metals hitting each other, huh? Jingles to a song that I had only sent to just a few. She saw my silver spurs and said, let's pass some time, and I will give you summer wine. And then the woman says, this is my summer wine, and it's made of all these things. If you take off your spurs and help me pass the time, and I will give you summer wine. So they share some wine, and he was drunk and he was knocked out. His eyes grew heavy, 眼皮垂下来, and lips, they could not speak. 说不出话来了, huh? I tried to get up, but I could not find my feet. He was really drunk. He could not walk. And she assured me with an unfamiliar line, and then she gave to me more wine. Ooh. So this guy wasn't, I don't know, maybe there's something in that wine. The woman kept seducing him. She says, take off your silver spurs. Okay. And when he woke up, he said, the sun was shining in my eyes. It could be the next day. My silver spurs were gone and my head felt twice its size. When you feel you're top heavy, your head was big, you would feel that your head is twice its size. She took my silver spurs at $1 and a dime, probably all his money, and left me craving for more summer wine. This craving is like pining. We learned the word pining, but that's what's about your emotion, while craving is more for something, like you crave for wine, or you crave, for example, people say when a woman is pregnant, she probably crave for pickles and sour plums and things like that. So it's unusual desire, a very irresistible, strong desire to want something is called craving. Crave, C-R-A-V-E. Then it's the same thing. We have the same slide like 3 times. This is a song written by Lee Hazelwood. So you would see that Lee Hazelwood in the picture that we just saw in the video. He originally sang it with Susie Jane Hockham. So the two of them sang that song in 1966. But a year later, he sang the same song with Nancy Sinatra, and that became a much bigger hit. And probably no one even remember the first version. Rolling Stone ranked Lee Hazelwood and Nancy Sinatra number 9 on their list of the 20 greatest duos of all time. Rolling Stone is a magazine. The name came from the quote that says, Rolling Stone gathers no moss. 这是一个英文常说的一个成语哈。And this magazine is all about the latest music in some fashion, probably. That's a fashionable magazine. And they rated this duo. A duo is a 2 people chorus, is a duo. 双人联唱. Rolling Stone chose them as number 9 of the all-time best duos. I would suppose it was in this country. So this Lee Hazelwood is dead now in 2007, while Nancy Sinatra is still alive because she was more than 11 years younger. She's a singer and actress, and she is the elder daughter of Frank Sinatra. We all know Frank Sinatra. They call him Old Blue Eye, or they call him Chairman, because he's very bossy, I guess. And he had at least 5 wives. So this Nancy Sinatra is his eldest daughter, oldest. We say eldest too. When we are comparing people in the same family, we use the word eldest or elder to mean 哥哥 or 姐姐. While if you are unrelated, you would say older. And in the group, for example, in a church, there are church elders. There are like 长老, presby. So in the church group, you're all brothers, so you would use the word elder instead of brother. But of course, you can also use brothers. So Nancy Sinatra is also her mother's name. Her mother's name was Nancy Barbato, but then she married Frank Sinatra and became Nancy Sinatra. And they had this daughter and named her Nancy too. Huh? She is widely known for a song, "These Boots Are Made for Walking." Yeah, I still remember the days when I opened the newspaper and this song was listed as #1 bestseller in that week or on that day. Now we have Liangzhou Ci. Liangzhou Ci, I'm sure most people have heard of it. It's by Tang Chao Wang Han. 葡萄美酒夜光杯，欲饮琵琶马上催。醉卧沙场君莫笑，古来征战几人回。This is really, you can consider it's an anti-war poem because he'd rather prefer drinking wine instead of going to war, and he expect he probably would die, and he's okay with that. So nobody would die. I mean, most people would die on the battlefield. It's just the life a soldier can expect, and you don't put too much worry on it. You know, 葡萄 is something that came from the West. It's not a domestic plant in China. They say that any tree or flowers or fruits, if it has 2 words, it's a foreign import. If it's native, then it only has 1 word. For example, 梅、菊、杏、桃. These are Chinese native plants, while 葡萄、玫瑰, these are foreign import. And sometimes we would put another adjective in front, for example, 洋葱 or 番茄 or whatever, if it's not domesticated. It's not from your own country, then we put a barbarian word in front of it. Okay. So this 夜光杯 would be some kind of a goblet that is particularly shiny and beautiful. And just when this soldier who is writing this poem was going to drink from the cup some wonderful grape wine, and the musical instrument, pipa, sounded. I guess it was just like a bugle or something, making a familiar tune that means we're going to war, drop everything and go. That's what that pipa was playing. It rushes people to go get on your horse and ride into the battlefield. But our soldier would rather drink than go to war, and he was defiant. Defy 就是他不听他的主人的话，他不听他的长官的话。Defy 就是不遵从长官的命令，叫做 defy 哈。So he defied their order, and he still insisted on drinking before he rides on the horse to the battlefield. And his reason is, don't laugh at me, because when I am drunk and I fell and I stayed on the ground in the battlefield, that's the time you should not poke fun at me, laugh at me, because hardly anybody would come back from the battlefield. So what's wrong with being drunk and fell and did not come back? That's about the same thing, huh? And I say there, it's the first one of the 2 poems with the name Liangzhou. Liangzhou Ci just mean that this Ci is probably a tune from Liangzhou, and so this poem is not strictly a 近体诗, it's not a modern style poem with all those restrictions. This poet is writing a poem that does not obey many rules. So he's using a folk tune to sing this poem. So it's not a 近体诗, not a modern style poem. It's got a second verse, 叫做秦中花鸟已应兰，塞外风沙犹自寒。夜听胡笳折杨柳，叫人忆起忆长安. And this one is far less widely known than the previous one. Most people have heard of the first one and can recite maybe 1 or 2 or 3 lines of it, but this one not so common. It's about 秦中花鸟应已兰. 这个兰 is means it's late, so probably spring. It's late in the spring. We say something is late using this word, which means balustrade or fence. It's because when the sun goes down, it would shine and put the shadow of the fence somewhere else, far away on the other side. So if you see the sun as low as the fence, that means it's late. So it's 秦中花鸟应已兰. The time is probably spring is advanced in the late stage. But here outside the border of China, there's still wind and sand and makes you shiver. Yeah. So even though time-wise it should be summer already, but we still feel the chill. And in the night you heard the Hu means barbarian. Jia is a kind of musical instrument. And maybe you hear people with breaking 杨柳树. 我们说今夜闻折杨柳. I think it's because, that's my guess, when people are leaving, you're supposed to break off a branch of the 杨柳树, and you would stick it into the ground, and you expect that branch to grow into a big tree. And when that person you love comes back, you could go to get together under this new tree and thinking about the old times when we parted, when I broke this branch. That's why Chinese people would break a branch of a willow tree. It means some kind of friendship. 叫人忆起忆长安, makes people reminded people of Chang'an. Of course, they're not in Chang'an, they're in Saiwai. So Wang Han is a poet who writes many 所谓塞外诗. 边塞诗. Okay, Wang Han is from 687 to 726. That's Tang Dynasty, and 是山西人, and he is a border fortress poet. We have different branches of the Chinese poetry writing, and there was one group or one genre called the 边塞, people who write a lot about border town or border activities. Genre is a category of literary category or artistic category. For example, you have different kinds of songs, and you can also say they're different genre. And he's not a very well-known poet. And in 全唐诗, only 14 of his poems were selected. 全唐诗 has tens of thousands of poems collected, and the people like Li Tang, Li Bai and Du Fu, they would have thousands of poems collected in 全唐诗. 全唐诗 was collected by a group of people in Qingchao, and the leader was Cao Xueqin's grandfather. So his name is Cao Yin, I suppose. So they did a huge collection, and later that was a very respected collection, and more people were hired to engage in such activities. So you would have 全清诗 or other kind of 诗, but of course 全清诗 would be a collection of Qing Dynasty poetry that collected in the Republic time. You don't do something when your dynasty is still going on, and you do it about your dynasty. Just like writing history, you have to wait until the dynasty is gone and the new dynasty comes up. Then the people from the new dynasty can write something about the previous dynasty, or to write the history about it. Of course, they were not created from scratch. The people during that dynasty would have written tons and tons of history already, but the next dynasty came along, and the people would work on this huge collection and organize them, or compose new parts, and so on and so forth, in order to write the history of the previous dynasty. And that is all started with Sima Qian. The greatest historian in history is Sima Qian. Of course, Ban Gu is also respected, but and many later ones were not as respected as those previous, the first two. And what we knew about Wang Han is that he passed the imperial examination. Just about everyone is expected to pass this very difficult examination. However, once in a while, we would encounter a few people who just could not do it, or they decided early on that they don't give a damn. They don't want to be put into the meat grinder and spend all their life chasing after fame and fortune. And these people are not stupid, actually. I would say many respected scholars in Chinese history, they decided to get out of the loop and to pursue whatever they wanted to do. There are people like Xu Xiake, or what's the person who did that? 本草纲目, Li Shizhen, and several Ming Dynasty people. Yeah, they are very respected scholars who never passed the imperial exam. Okay, I think that's about it today, but whoever wants to say something, please.
Thank you very much, Joe. You deserve a 全勤奖. Even the holiday, you never skip any days. It's quite amazing.
Yes. Last week I thought, oh God, my computer died. I'm going to die with it. But I managed to use my granddaughter's computer. So really? I'm very happy. I don't have to buy a backup, because anytime my computer dies, I know I could use something else.
Well, thank you, for all your time, and I really enjoyed it.
Agree.
I mean,
天
even
天讲
I
要
mean, it's hard to remember any new vocabulary, but still, kind of try to remember some old one, or you forgot.
Yeah, there are several things I do. Well, I would repeat one thing again and again, hoping that something would stick. And another is that even if you don't learn the words, you expand your knowledge. Yeah, I would talk about many different things like a Faroe Island you probably have never heard of, and many other things like that. It may not be interesting, but it just expands your mind.
Right. I mean, it's always nice, to if we learn something, something we some little thing actually. I'm surprised. Oh, I can't believe that. It's that's how it works, things like it's amazing. That's really good. Thank you.
Really, thank you so much. Really.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, for
Thank
once,
you.
Enjoy.
yeah, we're
Also,
about time. Yes.
yeah. Merry Christmas.
Yeah,
Happy
Merry
holidays.
Christmas.
Merry
Yes.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas to everybody.
Everyone.
Okay.
Merry-
Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.